Like it or not, Michael Thomas is still one of the NFL's best receivers in the league. This isn't even some magical revelation that you just heard for the first time. If you've watched any football from the New Orleans Saints over the last 5 seasons, you've probably seen 13 burning past a DB, making a contested catch, or running into the end zone for a touchdown. He's been great. If you've been on any NFL social media app over the past couple seasons, you've probably seen a joke about Thomas's short route running ability, his Jordan-esque mentality of taking everything personal, or his diva-like personality that he displays on Twitter. Even though these jokes are now regarded as ironic and comedically stale by most of the NFL community, they're still voiced and believed by a lot of people in the NFL world. Well, why is he really regarded in this way? The social media interaction on Instagram and Twitter probably doesn't help the cause. The offense that Thomas has played in for the duration of his professional career certainly runs things a bit differently than most NFL offenses. As a result of the decaying right arm of the 42-year-old Drew Brees, New Orleans had to resort to running things more horizontally than vertically in the final seasons of Drew Brees' career. Because of the new style of offense that Sean Payton had to resort to running, Thomas became the receiver of many jokes making fun of his multitude of short to intermediate targets, which became inflated as a result of the play calling. The 2019 Offensive Player of the Year was then given the nickname Slant Boy, which I have to add is kind of funny, but I think we might see a new and improved version of the Slant Man with a new quarterback next season. Michael Thomas's average depth of target, meaning how far down the field he's been targeted, hasn't really surpassed this top 60 of NFL wide receivers since his career started. And obviously I think the reason for that is because of the circumstances of the offense that he joined when he came into it. And I think with a new quarterback coming in and possibly a transformation of the offense becoming the deep threat that he used to be in years prior, I think that we might see his average depth of target finally break that top 60 range and possibly even higher. We've seen glimpses of what he can do down the field as a deep threat, not necessarily a speed guy, but just beating somebody deep versus running short and intermediate routes the whole game. The main reason that I have for thinking that this deep ball threat is going to become more of a consistent thing for Thomas next season is because of the games that he played this season with Taysom Hill. In 2020, Mike had 13 catches over 15 yards in the 4 games that he played with Taysom Hill. And for comparison, he only had 3 in the 4.5 games that he played with Brees this season. And it's also probably worth noting that he was playing this season on a hindered right ankle due to the high ankle sprain that he suffered back in Week 1. If he wasn't left in the run block during that Week 1 win over Tampa Bay, then the numbers likely would have been higher if he was at 100%, but unfortunately he wasn't. Hopefully he can remain at full strength next season with a new quarterback learning the system over the course of a full 16-game slate. In a lot of these clips, you can really start to see the impact that the ankle injury had on him because you can see him starting to round off some of the routes rather than cutting them sharp and on an angle like he normally does. You can see in the Atlanta one on that out route how it kind of rounded off. You can also see in the Denver one coming up that some of his curl routes were a little iffy. Some of his fade down the sideline against Denver, that was a little iffy. You can see him try to plant his feet into the ground and they kind of just get stuck. Like it doesn't look as ferocious like Mike normally does. And I think that should return next year because he will be fully healthy. And then if you also add on a downfield aggressive thrower like Jameis Winston, maybe he won't be like that in the system. I think that plus healthy Thomas is going to be a huge benefit to the deep ball status of him. One of the things that I've been kind of like pushing over the last season and partially over the last 2 seasons is that obviously his deep route running isn't a flaw in his game. It's just been a part of the offense that he was in. And then with Taysom Hill came in, he started getting way more downfield routes, downfield targets, even on one leg, and he was still succeeding with them. It started to look a little bit like his rookie year in 2016 with Drew. He had a lot more down the field stuff, specifically at the end of the season when they started pushing it. And a lot of the catches in these 4 games with Taysom Hill were contested ones rather than just wide open. And that's not just because of him not being able to get separation, that's the ankle not being able to cut as hard, harder to sell routes, and harder to get more room for the quarterback to throw to. This curl route might not be something that you see a lot next season or in the future with Mike, possibly just because of the amount of interceptions that Jameis Winston threw on them last season at Tampa Bay. Winston somehow had 7 interceptions on curl routes in 2019, and I don't really know how, considering that Drew Brees has not thrown a curl route interception since 2016. That's according to NewOrleans.Football and Nick Underhill. As for this fade down the sideline, it's definitely something that you're probably going to see next season. Winston threw 55 fades and streak routes in 2019 and only completed 15 of them, 5 of them for touchdowns, 2 of them for picks, and for 588 passing yards. He also threw a league-leading 36 passes deep into the left side of the field, which is 20-plus yards downfield. In 2019, Thomas only had 16 targets on those same routes, so you probably should expect to see that number jump up next year. So this play here was just a complete coverage bust from the Falcons. So you can see Mike is going to be the blue circle coming in motion across, and what the Falcons are running is supposed to be cover 3. Now, what their principles are is kind of unknown to me because they completely bust the coverage. So the purple circle, which is AJ Terrell, he ends up following Mike on the crosser and is in no man's land because he has no leverage. He's playing the outside. He has no chance to get over there to cover that. What I think was supposed to happen was either one of the 2 red circle defenders, which is the deep safety, or 34, which I believe is Denard. He's supposed to undercut the crosser from Mike in order to give Traquan Smith running the streak to another defender. But what happens is that Denard, 34, at the top of the screen, he stays with Traquan, and then the deep safety also double teams Traquan, so then it leaves Terrell in no man's land. One of the main reasons that I really wanted to highlight this play specifically and how Mike got open on it is because it kind of shows that it's a product of the defense sometimes on what they give the offense on how the stats look rather than the individual performance of one player. Quick little advertisement break here. I want to thank Thrilling Pass on Instagram for making the thumbnail to this video, and I would like to ask you guys to quickly like and subscribe to help support the channel. Thank you. Thomas also had 18 targets that were 10 plus yards downfield during the 4 games that he played with Hill. He had 62 targets all season long in 2019 over the course of 17 games that were 10 plus yards downfield, which is a little bit under 2.5 per game, I believe, whereas for this season he had just over 4. If Mike could just get around 70 targets that were 10 plus yards downfield next season, he'd probably end up abolishing the reputation that he has for running other short and intermediate routes. The idea of trading Thomas has also been passed around a little bit over NFL circles since the season ended, but it really does not make any sense at all. Trading him before the new league year, which is June 1st, would result in a $20 million dead cap penalty. It also would save the Saints, well actually it wouldn't save the Saints anything. They'd actually lose $1.2 million for shipping Thomas to another team. So unless they decide to move on for football or off the field related reasons, Thomas should be here next season. A lot of people have asked me how I see the Saints and also how I see Thomas doing next season with a new quarterback and possibly almost entirely new reshaped roster. I honestly still see them winning 10 games and probably making the playoffs as long as it's Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill under center. I also want to put out a fair warning for Saints fans next season, and it's probably that if it is Jameis Winston starting, that he's going to probably struggle like Taysom Hill did at a couple of his early starts. Hill had no offseason this year and had to get thrown into the mix right in the middle of the year due to Drew Brees' injury, and I feel like he got a lot of unwarranted hate for his performances, and honestly, he played pretty well in 2 games. As for the Denver game and the Philadelphia game, he didn't look great, but he did what he was supposed to do in the Denver game, and the Philadelphia game was just a struggle all around offensively. I think if you give Taysom a healthy offense around him and a good offensive line, I think that they could easily succeed in the regular season, but I don't see them making a deep playoff run. Whereas with Jameis, I think there's a degree of variance there on how the team will play from week to week offensively, but I think you do have a higher ceiling and possibly a chance to win a Super Bowl over the course of 3 seasons, whereas with Taysom, I don't see that. The bottom line is this though, Michael Thomas will be back and should be better than ever next season. 2020 was a year of negative and horrific events, and that also translated onto the football field for the number 1 wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Since 2016 in his rookie year, Thomas has improved his statistics and his performance on the year following his previous season. That changed in 2020 though, due to the high ankle sprain injury and the weird circumstances surrounding everything in the NFL. I think in 2021 though, with a new quarterback and possibly a new offense and even a new roster for the New Orleans Saints, things should get back to normal and possibly even better for the 2019 Offensive Player of the Year. There's still 3 constants in life: death, taxes, and...
You can't guard Mike.